I came from the oil field. The oil field is fun and exciting, but from one week to the next, I never knew if the work was still going to be there, if I was still going to have a job. So coming to Hartman's, I've been able to have stability. Each day I come into work, it's something different. It's a new challenge. It's not the same thing, day in and day out.
I did go to college. I spent about 6 years in college. I used the industrial work to pay for that college, and eventually just got to a spot where I enjoyed working with my hands in the business more than I liked going to college.
When I came to this job, I didn't know anything about machining. I didn't know anything about the tools they use, nothing. They taught me everything that I know now. I don't need to, say go to college to find the dream job that I want or a job that makes me the money that I need to live.
Since I've been here, I know that there is not a problem that I go through that I have to deal with alone. There are people here that have the experience, have the knowledge, so if I have a question and I don't understand exactly what's going on or I'm confused, I can ask somebody here and they're more than happy to help.
When you think of manufacturing, you think of machines and building stuff, but there's actually a lot of opportunities in manufacturing. For example, here at Ludlam Measurements, we have accountants, we have engineers, we have chemists, physicists, software engineers, the list goes on, but there's a lot of opportunities in manufacturing.
If you think of manufacturing, you think of building something, but to build that product, it takes a team of different people to do it. It's very diverse on what you can end up doing in manufacturing. It's not just specific to manufacturing on its own. You have to keep learning and keep changing and keep growing as an individual so you fit with the current industry and the current needs and the current times, because those are always changing as well.
What excites me the most is knowing there's going to be something new every day. It's non-repetitive. It's new projects for new people, being able to take an idea and make it into a real part that has a real purpose.
You can take raw materials and produce something that's beneficial to other people. There are a lot of opportunities in manufacturing. There are a lot of opportunities for women in manufacturing. And when you work hard and you have confidence in yourself and you're working with a good team, I think there's no end to where you can go with it.
Good bit of it is you can come right out of high school into one of these jobs. You might not be making, $50,000, $60,000 a year straight off the bat, but you've already got an entrance into a career that will take you a whole lot further. I started off as just whittling on plastic, and I run mold machines, 2-3 machines sometimes in an entire week. There's a ton of opportunities everywhere out here. If one part of it doesn't fit you, there's another part that probably will.
It's just interesting watching all the various tools that we use to make something, even something minor, takes a significant amount of time. I got to learn stuff that I wouldn't have got to learn anywhere else. So I don't think that that you can ever reach a limit of growth. The possibilities are endless, honestly.
As a young man, when I was in high school, they offered a metal trades course is what the name of it was. It was for juniors and seniors. Taught you how to weld, taught us how to run machine shop equipment. When I became a senior, my shop teacher got me a job at a local machine shop. Instead of going to class, I went to work. It's been 43 years, but I've moved up about as high as I can move up without a college education.
I didn't know anything about manufacturing. I had been working on heavy equipment. I just knew it was going to be a job close to home, and I was going to be home every day. I would encourage anybody working manufacturing from the standpoint of me not knowing anything about it to what I know now. It's been overall a good experience, and I'd encourage anybody to do it.
When you get out here, you're going to be trained for every job that we do. And we've got so many tools to help train you. I think anybody off the street can actually come in, read our VWIs, which is one of the tools that we have, and actually be able to do that job.
Manufacturing, don't you want to be in one now after watching that video? There's all kinds of exciting things that are going on. So at this time I want to invite Thomas Taylor to come up. He is the Chair and Operations Manager at Ludlam Measurements in Sweetwater, Texas.
Marissa. I'd like to start off by thanking the Abilene Industrial Foundation for providing today's lunch. It was very generous, and it's nice to have a good meal and sit and talk with people that you work with. So thank you very much. So thank you all for coming. Today is the day I've been looking forward to for a long time. I love talking about manufacturing. I love the work we do and really enjoy the people that we work with. And so I'm excited to get to talk about that a little bit and let you hear from other people and how their careers have gone in getting to the positions they're in. I do want to recognize a couple of people that are here today and thank them for coming. We have Bobby Hanson from Ted Cruz's office. And we have Katie Cobb and Joel Riddle from Senator John Cornyn's office. So this is a great time to be in manufacturing, and a lot of things that are going on in Texas are because of our legislators and our elected officials who have helped create this environment for us to be successful in. So thank you very much. So, when you look at our agenda, it looks like today's event is just beginning, but for a lot of people here, it actually started this morning. What you may not realize is that when you are in your offices or at work answering emails or sitting in meetings, there are whole groups of people here from 11 different companies working with 16 different schools, providing plant tours for our local students. And today we had nearly 500 students, teachers, administrators, and counselors tour our local manufacturing companies. So that's really exciting, isn't it? What was great about that is a lot of these students have never been in a manufacturing company. And when I think back in my life, I didn't step foot in one until I was in college. So for a lot of these students, they're getting a head start because these companies have opened up their doors. Students were able to hear about the variety of careers that are employed within these companies. The businesses who provide products are providing products that are going into new homes used around the state. They're also providing products that are going into new businesses, such as Tesla down in Austin. Made here in the big country, we have products that are being used in refineries along the Gulf Coast, as well as other areas of the energy sector in our economy. We manufacture instruments in our community right here in the big country that are used by the U.S. Navy in the depths of the ocean, as well as NASA in reaching out into space. During the tour, students were able to sit there and interact with employees, and many of these employees are their neighbors working in companies that are building fire equipment for putting out brush fires and keeping their homes safe, as well as visiting companies that are building products that are keeping our nation safe as well. So our students got a good understanding of what's going on in our community. During the past year, when you look at what's been happening in manufacturing and the BCMA specifically, companies have been working a lot with local schools and developing new partnerships, new relationships, and finding new ways for education and manufacturing to work together. These partnerships will help students find their own career path in a good paying job, like you saw in the video here. At the same time, our partners from economic development, workforce development, and others in the public sector have helped to expand the manufacturing in our community. We've seen a small company, Hard Hat Veterans in Sweetwater, and open up a new facility. Georgia Pacific announced a $285 million expansion at their facility here. Hartman's has moved into a larger facility so they can continue to grow and serve their customers well. And just recently, it's been announced that Great Lake Cheese has selected Abilene as the location for their new facility. So because of all these efforts, we continue to see manufacturing grow here, and it just proves that manufacturing is alive and well here in Texas, and it's very vibrant here in the big country. This afternoon, our keynote speaker, is going to give us a glimpse into her career and her path through manufacturing. That's a path that started in Detroit and meandered through Kentucky and Georgia as she completed her education in aerospace engineering. From that point, Barbara was recruited by General Dynamics and brought to Texas and has spent her career and raised her family here. She's been part of the engineering design team on the F-16 and the F-22 programs and done quite a bit in the aerospace industry. And in order to hear more of that story, please help me with welcoming Barbara Townsend.
When Amy first told me that I needed to talk 45 minutes, I thought, just remember, you should never have someone talk longer than a pastor gives a sermon. So if you guys have a problem with how long I'm going to say, talk to Amy, because I'm not out of time. And meander was definitely the right word, Thomas, for what my life has been like. Name is Barbara Townsend. My daddy told me from the beginning, Barbara, you can be anything you want to be. And I heard, Barbara, you can be everything you want to be. And I have done a lot of different things. Started off in Detroit. Grew up in Detroit in the 60s. So what did I know? I knew Motown. I knew Motor City. I knew cars. That's what everybody from my high school knew about, was cars. My dad was in insurance. He was an adjuster. He had a degree in business, so okay, I know about business. My mom and all of her family were teachers, so okay, I knew about teaching. But that was it. That's all I knew. I mean, what do you know? This is what y'all were talking about. This is what's so great about bringing all these kids into the manufacturing facilities to see what it's like. You only know what you've seen. So, graduated from a class of 600 in Detroit. 25 of us went to college. Everybody else went immediately into the automobile industry. Why not? You're in Detroit. You have so much there. So that's where they went. So I was going to be one of the 25 that went off to college. Now, in my family, you didn't choose your college. Everybody in my family went to a small university called Eastern Kentucky University. It's in Richmond, Kentucky, just 30 minutes south of Lexington, Kentucky. Little bitty school. But I mean, everybody in my family had to start there. In fact, the dorm I was in is the exact same dorm room that my mother stayed in. It is the exact same dorm room my grandmother stayed in. Burnham Hall. To say it was old is being generous. But it's very much started. It was primarily a teaching university, to be expected, but it had something very, very special. It had a mandatory freshman class where everybody had to take, and the class was a small school, so the class had five students and an advisor. They gave you an aptitude test, what you're capable of doing. It gave you an interest test, what do you want to do? Looked at your values. What do you value in life? What stirs your soul? And then, what's your personality? Are you outgoing? Are you introverted? Do you like to work in groups? Do you like to work by yourself? That type of thing. And from that, the advisor would then sit down with you and give you a list of the type of jobs they thought you should look into. So, my list, math and science teacher. Surprise, surprise. My mom, family, that. Business, probably I love numbers. So, business, probably something in finance. Surprise, surprise, think of my dad. Engineering, mechanical or aerospace. Excuse me? What is that? I had no idea what an engineer did. I had no idea. In aerospace, I mean, that's NASA. I mean, I don't understand. So, next step, you had to take one of those items and go out and find out what are the skills and credentials that were needed. Where were the jobs? What was the salary range? What was a typical day like? Find out what it was about that job and what you would look like in that job. So I knew what a business person did. I knew what a teacher did. So I went ahead and took aerospace engineering because I thought NASA was really cool. So put that together. It took about a month, and then you had to present it. And then from that, then you could decide whether they would then allow you to pick a major. So I looked at all this. I ended up getting in touch with people that were in aerospace engineering. I mean, I just ate this up. It was so exciting that what you would be around, and it wasn't just NASA, it was anything that had to do with fluid dynamics. So we were talking airplanes, we were talking missiles, we were talking submarines. I mean, fluid dynamics. It all worked in together, and it was just so exciting to me. So I decided that's what I wanted to do. But it wasn't offered at Eastern Kentucky. So I decided, all right, well, this worked well for me. Oh, before I go further, I checked EKU, still does the same thing. It's no longer a mandatory course, but they use a course that comes from a company called Type Focus. So if anybody has, students that they would like to kind of go through something like this, Type Focus is the name of the company that does that. So I would highly recommend it. So it wasn't available at EKU. So I decided, well, this presentation format worked really good to get me excited about it. So I decided that summer I would go home and make a presentation for my parents about why in the world I should be allowed to go to a school that had aerospace engineering. So I actually did a lot of research on it. Okay, so what's the best aerospace engineering school? Well, a gentleman by the name of Solomon Guggenheim back in 1937 set up an endowment in several of our universities for, at that time, aeronautical engineering. And so I decided, well, if I'm going to go to the best. So for aerospace engineering, that was going to be MIT, Caltech, University of Michigan, Stanford, and Georgia Tech. So I looked at all those. What did I like about them? Well, it turned out all fantastic schools. I'd go ahead and apply to all of them, but the one I wanted was Georgia Tech. I liked the idea of being still in the South. I liked the idea that the class was going to be very small. My engineering class was 25 students. I was the only female. I liked the fact that it was close to Coca-Cola, because everybody loves Coca-Cola. And I mean, you could actually see the Coca-Cola headquarters from the building. It was really cool. And it was the least expensive of the schools. So I had my presentation, I gave it to my parents, and they were impressed and said, okay, Barb, if that's what you want to do, go for it. And I ended up getting accepted to Georgia Tech, went to Georgia Tech. Now, what kind of classes did I end up taking in aerospace engineering? Well, the difference between an aeronautical engineer and an aerospace engineer is you take classes in rocketry and propulsion. So yes, I am a rocket scientist. So I can definitely say to somebody, that's not rocket scientist, and I am a perfect. Kind of classes I would take would be aerodynamics, structures, propulsion, materials. We had classes in material science, thermodynamics, design, and tons of computer programming. And when I was doing this is going to really age me. When I was in doing computer programming, it was on cards. So you spent your life in the computer science lab making these cards and prayed that you never dropped the cards. Because you would never figure out how to put them all back in the same order again. It would never happen. There weren't numbers on them. So it's so much better today. So those are the type of classes I took. We would have a senior project where the professor would say, okay, we want you to design an airplane, it's gonna have this kind of performance, it has to have this kind of payload, go. And we would end up putting together what we would design, and then we had to build a model. And there was actually a subsonic wind tunnel in the basement of our aerospace engineering building, which was really cool. So we could test it and see what it was like. And we actually also did some structural testing where we would figure out what the load was going to be on the wing based on what the lift was. And you would have to test it and figure out where the stress points were gonna be. And that was also part of it. Having a wind tunnel in the building was also very interesting in that it would be used by companies who needed to do wind tunnel testing on their products. It was very typical that one time a year, all the windows that would look into the wind tunnel, which the wind tunnel was in the basement, so on the first floor you'd have this block of windows that you could look in and see whatever they were testing at any time, and which was always very interesting. But one time a year, it would all be cordoned off so we couldn't see it, because Ford would come in and test whatever their new model was going to be that year. And we would all try really hard to go around and see if we could see something. Never did see anything. But it was really neat to think that the wind tunnels were used for that also. Okay. It was a lot of work. We did a lot of studying. I actually ended up finding a closet in the aerospace engineering building that really wasn't being used very much, so that I could put all of my books in there and I could go in there with a little light and study, because it was 30 minutes to get home and 30 minutes to get back. So I was there like from 5 a.m. in the morning until 9 p.m. at night and just studied tons. But it was a lot of fun too. I had this one friend, Scott Horowitz, who actually became the pilot for the space shuttle STS-75. Crazy guy. He had a little MG, and we would drive it back and forth from where our apartments were to downtown Atlanta, where Georgia Tech was. And I mean, we had all these trucks, and the traffic around Atlanta was horrible. And we would say, one of these days, we're just gonna have to blow one of these trucks up in front of us so we can get by. So we decided, that's not a bad idea. Took his MG, put some railings on the bottom of it, and got some of those rockets, that people blast off in their yard. Set them up on the bottom of there, ended up running wires into the dashboard, put a little toggle switch on it, turn the toggle switch, a little light go beep, 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 to show that it was ready for launch, and boom, we could take that. Off it would go. So we decided we needed to test it one day. Went to the parking lot on the high hill, actually next to the Coca-Cola building, on the high hill, and we thought, okay, we're gonna point it and see how far it goes. I mean, we really weren't sure if it would take off, but it should. And so, we get it all set up, toggle switch, boop, 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 push the button, boom, off they went. The next day, in the student newspaper, rockets found next to the chemical engineering building. Not sure where they came from. We knew. So, after graduation, I graduated in 1981, ended up getting a job at General Dynamics. General Dynamics, Fort Worth, they had come to our campus every year and gave great presentations whenever we needed speakers for our organization was AIAA, American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. They were great about bringing us people, and just, that's where I wanted to go. So we moved out here to Fort Worth, and I started off in computer programming and aerodynamics, moved over after a few months into advanced design. in aerodynamics. I absolutely loved it. The design group was just fantastic. And this is the way design worked for the F-22. Start off with marketing, going to visit the Air Force, USAF. Go to visit USAF, they talk about what it is they want. We're gonna need something that takes the place of the F-16. What is it gonna be? Well, we want it to do this, that, and the other, this payload, this kind of performance. What is it you want? So, and oh, by the way, marketing's gonna tell them about what products we have, what kind of materials we're using, what we're hearing about in the industry as far as propulsion is concerned. Come up with a design idea. They're gonna come back to us. From there, it goes into advanced design. And what we're gonna do is aerodynamics, I'm going to look at, okay, you want this kind of performance, so this is the lift I'm gonna need, this is the drag I'm gonna need. I'm gonna look and see what kind of camber I want for the wing, what kind of shape I want for the wing, how thick or thin I want the wing. Fuselage, do I want the wing close by to the nose? Do I want it further back? Do I want to swept forward? Do I want to swept back? How do I want to coke in the fuselage in some place? Tail, what kind of tail do I want? How much do I need? What about the flaps? What about the ailerons? How am I going to do all that? So I'm going to come up with this design. Now, aerodynamicist, I want it paper thin, and I want it to be as thin as possible in the fuselage. I want this little bitty thing. Then you have the structures people. The structures people want it to be an I-beam. I mean, they just want it to be as hefty as possible. So they're looking at it that way. Going back a little bit, aerodynamics. It's gonna either be an aerodynamicist, either be an aeronautical or aerospace engineer is what you're gonna have. Now, for the structures, who's that gonna be? It could be an aeronautical engineer, because we study structures. It could be a mechanical engineer. But we also had civil engineers. They studied quite a bit in structures. They studied materials. So that is something that we may bring in some civil engineers if that was something that they were interested in. Then we're going to also look at the avionics. We're going to have your electrical engineers there. They're going to consider what is going to be the radar that's going to be necessary. What kind of avionics is going to be necessary? How is it the pilot is going to interact with the airplane? And so they're going to be looking at all that. They're also going to be looking at what does the airplane look like to a radar that's on the ground. So they're going to be interested in the shape on the outside too. So, and then you also have your propulsion. Now, General Dynamics did not make engines. So we had our propulsion people that were working with either GE or Pratt & Whitney or someone else, excuse me, and find out what it is that's out there, what's new, what's going on, and then put in an engine. So you have all these groups that are looking differently. I'm wanting this piece of paper. Structures is wanting this I-beam. Avionics wants to look like a pimply teenager. And then you have the propulsion that just wants it to look like one big engine. And so we're going to work together. And we're going to have designers that are actually going to be listening to everybody and trying to put this together. From there, we're going to come up with a design. Then we're going to send it to the wind tunnel. We're going to send it to structural testing. We're going to send it to software testing and simulation and test it. For me, I'd go to the wind tunnels. I loved going to wind tunnels. There are wind tunnels all over the United States. Subsonic, supersonic, and hypersonic wind tunnels. Going to a wind tunnel was really interesting. And the people that work wind tunnels talk about people that want to be hands-on. I mean, they're having to work with how do you connect whatever model has been made to your sensors to get the information that I'm going to need as an aerodynamicist. And then I may say, oh gosh, let's try making this wing a little bit thicker. Okay, let's try moving the wing back a little bit. And so you have modelers who are there with you that are continually changing the wing configuration, the fuselage configuration to help you get what you want. And at the same time, you're giving this information to structures so that they know what the loads are, so they can start figuring out where their stress points are. Are we gonna be working together? You're gonna be giving it to the avionics groups. You know, I'm sorry, I cannot have this bump right here, it isn't gonna work. Is it okay if we move to another place? Constantly working together. So it's this iterative, going back and forth with each other until we get we move on. For the F-22, that lasted 4 or 5 years, something like that. I mean, it's a long process. Funny story with wind tunnel. They've been all over. I've been to Virginia, I've been to California, I've been to Florida, I've been to Ohio, and I've been to Buffalo, New York. Buffalo, New York has one of the best wind tunnels I've ever been to. It's called Calspan. The first time I went there, it was January. January in Buffalo, New York is not fun. I got there, flew in, got to the rental car place. It's like 8 o'clock at night. Where's my car? It's the third one. I don't see anything. He hands me a snow shovel. It's the third mound. Seriously, you had to shovel your car out before you get to it. Yes, it was just such a glamorous job. Okay, let's see. So anyway, that's what we do. Okay, so we come up with a design. What do we do then? We have to write a proposal. So we know what the government wants. We know what we're going to give them. We're wanting to put this one together from General Dynamics. The other company at that time was Boeing. And so we're having to put this proposal together. Proposal, you have your industrial engineers that are going to come now. They're going to look at, okay, you're wanting to design this. So they have to come up with designing the manufacturing plan. How are we going to do that? They're going to come up with what's the process that we're going to do to put all these pieces together. And they're going to come up with a timeline from what they think would need to be done to make this all happen. You have your design engineers that are taking all the information that we have given them on what this airplane looks like, and they're going to write about it. And then all of us that worked in the advanced design, the aerodynamicists, the structures people, the avionics people, we're all going to write our section about this airplane. How does it really work? How are we going to do this? And then we have technical engineers who take engineering ease and actually make it into something someone can read. You have your illustrators who are going to make awesome designs so that it's something that's interesting to read to people in the government. And then you have your marketing people that are going to make it packaged great. Now, I'm not talking about something that's this thick. When we finished all the information that needed to go into that and make the copies that were necessary, it filled up a C-130. That is 43,000 pounds of paper. We had all worked on this so hard at this point for 6 years that I swear we could have pushed that airplane into the air ourselves. It did not need an engine. We wanted it so bad. Well, we ended up getting the assignment. We ended up winning the contract and we were thrilled. And so I was switched over to another program. During the time that we had been doing the F-22, General Dynamics had been very generous in that they would allow you, they would pay for you to get another degree if you wanted it, with the fact that if you got a B or better, they'd pay for it, and then you had to stay one extra semester for every semester you took. So I went after my master's in business and finance, because I like numbers, and I was able to do that. TCU was within a 15-minute drive, so I could take lunch classes as well as evening classes, which worked great. You know, I was salary, so I could work around it. I mean, let's face it, you all know that kind of stuff. You're working part-time, that means you're only working 12 hours a day instead of 24. So, I mean, you're gonna be there, you're gonna put the work in. So I could take classes during the day as well as in the evening. So, after F-22, I moved over to the F-16 department. And the F-16 department obviously was already going, and I became a lead engineer for the F-16 version that is sold to Turkey. Now, at the time that I was doing that is the only time in the history of Turkey that they had a female prime minister. So it did work. Her name was Tansu Çar. She was phenomenal. The country at the time was very secular. I doubt very seriously that we have a female handling the F-16 program in Turkey right now. My responsibilities for that included managing the design, manufacture, and delivery timeline. You don't just take a F-16 off the flight or off the manufacturing line and give it to Turkey. You have to continually work with the government to find out what are the export rules. What can we give them? What can't we give them? And then how do you design the F-16 in such a way that the Turkish government is happy it can actually still fly, but we have done our due diligence for our own country. So you're constantly working with that. At the same time, the Turkish government is saying, well, we want this. Okay, well, I can't give you that, but I can maybe do this. So I'm continually working with the engineers in trying to come up with what they would be happy with. You're also visiting the customer. I got to go to Istanbul and Ankara and onto the Mediterranean. It was fabulous. I actually rode on Orient Express, and it was very cool. The food was horrible, but it was a cool place. And then you're also dealing with maintenance issues. What's going on over there? How can we help them? Also, we are continually testing the F-16 at all times. What is it we're finding now in our testing that there's going to be a problem when they get 2 more hours on your airplanes? And being proactive in taking care of any fixes that need to be taken care of there. So it works out really great. They will have continuing improvements in avionics that we'll get. There'll be continuing improvements in weapons. What can we sell them? What can't we sell them? So it's as much diplomacy as it is engineering, is really the best way of putting it. Speaking of diplomacy, when you're dealing with another country that's wanting airplanes, the government wants, we're going to use Turkey. The US government wants Turkey to have F-16s. They want them to have F-16s because it's good for the US to have an ally with F-16s. So they are going to want us to sell to Turkey, and they will help Turkey to buy those F-16s. Turkey is going to want something from us to have their F-16s. In the case of Turkey, what they wanted is they wanted some of the manufacturing to be done in their country so that they would get the manufacturing technology. And then that can be used for their own good. Okay. Well, other countries, it's not necessarily what they want. And so it can get interesting. For example, in Italy is going to get F-16s. But what they wanted is they wanted to increase their export. So we ended up having to buy a ton of lollipops. Because that would show an increase in their export. So you could go into any plant of General Dynamics and you'd be into the lollipop. Because we didn't know what that had to do with all these lollipops. So, I was in engineering for about 13 years. And then David and I ended up being blessed to have our first child. We considered me continuing to work, but here I was traveling back and forth to Turkey. David was traveling back and forth to Japan. So we wanted to be the one raising our kids. So we decided, I'm gonna stay home. So that's what we did. So I'm not one to sit still. That's just not who I am. So I went back to what I learned at EKU to determine what my next step was. What were my aptitudes? What am I capable of? Well, I'm pretty good at math and science. What are my interests? Well, I love to work out. Every single day I run probably 2 to 3 miles a day, and I make sure I get in 5 to 10. I mean, it's just something I like to do. What are my values? Well, my values right at that point were my family. I wanted to do what I could for my family. Personality. I'm kind of outgoing. I like to be around people. So I decided with those things, what I would do is I chose to study personal training and aerobic exercise. So that ended up going to get a certification where I had to study kinesiology, nutrition, and exercise physiology. I ended up working at several gyms all over the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And it was great because one, I got in my exercise, I was able to teach and train, plus every single one of those gyms had childcare. So I told my kiddos when they were in that childcare, if we ever go someplace and you don't feel comfortable, I promise you we will never go back to that gym again. And there was one time where we left and my son Joseph said, Mommy, I don't want to go back there. And I said, that's fine, we'll never go back there again. A year later, they ended up having a child who was hurt by a care worker in that particular gym. So, listen to your kids. But it worked out perfect for me. It was really what I wanted to do. And it also gave me a lot of flexibility in what I wanted to do. It turned out that when our son was in 2nd grade and our daughter went into 1st grade, David ended up getting moved to Japan. So we picked up our family and we moved to Japan, and it worked out great. We did not live on the base. We lived out in the middle of the Japanese people, and we ended up making some amazing friends, and I could talk to you for hours about all the crazy things that ended up happening there, but it was really very good. The kids went to an international school. At the international school, I was able to continue my personal training and did aerobics classes there. I ended up taking 100 hours of Japanese, and in the process of learning Japanese, ended up meeting some ladies that wanted to learn English. So I was able to teach English to some people. And then from there, I was asked if I would do voiceovers. And I said, okay. So the first one that came to me was Toyota. What Toyota wanted to do is they wanted to have an audio tour of the Toyota factory in English, so that when they had people from the United States or England come over, they could have someone to go through it. So what they did is they sent me the script in their translation of English. And it would take me about 2 to 3 weeks to translate from Japanese English to English and get all that right. And then from there, I would go in and have a booth, and I would read through it, and it would, it was really interesting. It was great fun. And then after I did Toyota, Noritake, if any of y'all have Noritake China, it is phenomenal. They have manufacturing, and we lived in Nagoya, which is kind of like their Detroit. It's where Mitsubishi is. That's where their factory is and where their museum is. So I did an audio for that as well. And then Mazda called us. And Mazda wanted the whole family. And of course my kids like, oh, this is so cool. So we go, well, theirs was a little different. They didn't send me a script or anything to work on. I was like, okay. So we get there and they said, okay, well, what do you want us to do? We want you to jump up and down and yell and scream and be really, really excited. And then at the very end, get really quiet and go, my zoom zoom. That's what they call their Mazda over there, is my zoom zoom. Well, David was not going to do that. He was not help having. Well, they finally got us to do it all, and then they decided we didn't look American enough. So it's our voices, but a whole different family. But it was fun. I mean, it was a great experience. It was just, you just open yourself up to anything and everything. So that's what we did. So from there, how am I doing time-wise? Okay, good. From there, we came back and I continued the aerobics and personal training. It worked out great. Got very involved with the schools the kids were in. Obviously, in the international school, everybody is very, very involved. So when we came back, I continued to be involved. I got involved with, I would once a week spend a day in whatever library the kids were going to school in to work with the librarian. I would work with the math teachers. Whatever they needed, I was there. And then in 2011, we had a brand new superintendent who had actually come from out in West Texas. I'm trying to remember where. Fort Stockton. Yes, came from Fort Stockton. Ron Mayfield, amazing individual. Anyway, he came to Granbury and he said, Barbara, I want you to start an education foundation. We need an education foundation. And I said, why do we need an education foundation? I mean, our area is really, we're doing fine, we're doing okay. He goes, no. Back in Fort Stockton, he had a gentleman come to him and say, I have $1 million and I need to put it into the school system. How do I do that? And there was no way for him to do it without an education foundation. So I mean, Mr. Mayfield, he started working and he got that education foundation started as fast as he could. But by the time he got it established and made it to a 401k, the gentleman only had $100,000 left. But he went ahead and gave it to him. But he promised himself he would never go to another school system that didn't have an education foundation. So he asked me to organize it and get it started. So I was the founding president and we got together, I guess it was about 13 people. And we went through all the training that was necessary. We got the companies involved and we put together an education foundation. So that started back in, by the time we got it up and running, it was 2012. So it's been almost 10 years. And we have made over $650,000 and we have given over $400,000 in educational grants to teachers. They turn in innovative ideas that they would like on their campus that you just normally can't afford, and we're able to do it that way. And it has been a very gratifying experience for me. The other big thing that we do with the Education Foundation is once a year we take the 25 top seniors and we have a dinner for them. We ask each one of them to invite the most influential employee from GISD to come with them. Normally it's a teacher, but we've had counselors, we've had a bus driver, we've had librarians that come in, and there's a book that we put together. Here's the student, this is where they're going, this is what they're good at, and here's the paragraph they've written about that influential person. And then we have them stand up and read it. at the meeting. And the morale of our teachers has skyrocketed since we started that program. It's really very, very special. So I ended up getting that much more involved in the schools. So once they graduated, I decided, one, I needed to go into something else. So I ended up going into banking. I am now working as the portfolio manager. I handle commercial contracts for a 4-county region. If you needed a loan that had to do with small business, or manufacturing, or commercial, you would come to me, we would talk about what you need, and I would be the one that helps you put that together. I'm a preferred SBA lender, blah, 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 blah. So that's what I'm involved in now, but my heart is that I'm now in the school system as Vice President of the Granbury School District. Independent School District, and we are really working on this phenomenal college, career training education. Our students build an airplane every year. They can get their flight training, ground school done, and then they can start taking their flight training, and our Education Foundation funnels money in so that if you can't afford your flight training, they will help you with that. So it all kind of works in together. We also have automotive mechanics. We have, we have pharmacy tech. We have nurses aid. We have floral design. We have a culinary department that is phenomenal. We have Adobe. We have remote drone pilot training. We're working at getting airframe and propulsion tech in there. And it's just, we found that 55% of our kids go to college, but 45% don't. And we need to make sure that 45% know what is available. And that's what's so exciting about what you guys are doing here today, is you're taking care of that percentage that aren't going to go to college, but you want them to be sustaining members of society that can contribute and take care of their families. I guess my closing is, if there's a takeaway from what I have done in my life, it's you're never done growing, you're never done exploring, and you should continually look at, are you where you want to be? Continually look at what is your capability, what are your interests, what are your values, what is your personality. Look for your options and then take that path. And if you do it, and if it turns out it's not the right thing, adjust and keep going. Thank you so much for having me here today. I've really enjoyed being here.
Before you sit down, are there any questions from the audience for Barbara that you would like to ask her? No. Is it intimidating because she's a rocket scientist?
How'd you meet that good-looking guy here with you?
Okay, so I started working there in 81. You started working there in 82, right? Approximately. Okay, so I am your typical, female engineer. I'm so proud of myself. I had the suit, I had the puffy sleeves, I had the little bow, I was so proud of myself. I just thought I was just hot stuff, right? And the vice president of engineering decided to put together what he called his fair-haired kids from each one of the departments. So I got picked from aerodynamics, and I was just so proud of myself, and I got picked to be the head of the group, and so I'm in there, and I'm just sitting there thinking I'm just such hot stuff, and in walks this guy in blue jeans and a t-shirt and a motorcycle jacket, sits on the table and goes, "You're in charge?" That's how I met David. Well, it turned out, it didn't work out. We did not get along, it was not good. It wasn't for another 6 to 8 years that we met again. We were on different, the plant had 32,000 people, didn't see each other. And then we ended up getting into another meeting where it was QVC. Quality functional deployment training, how could I forget? And we had to design a pizza box. And over pizza, we started going out. So it just took a while.
Barbara, we have a question from the audience. Sorry.
So Barbara, can you explain how you got the CTE program going, how the district's put that together, and what hurdles you had to overcome to add those programs in?
Okay, that's great. We ended up, obviously did not have the space in the school. And so we ended up having to take a bond, go out and get a bond. So we had to convince the community that this is something that they needed. And we decided if we were gonna go big. So we ended up doing an $80 million bond. But we ended up building a whole section onto the building, and it has every single thing I had my list. It was going out and explaining to them that we wanted our students to want to stay in Granbury, and we needed to make sure that they had the skills they needed to be our plumbers, to be our electricians, as well as to be our doctors and our lawyers. That we needed people that knew how to manage a grocery store. That we needed people that were your neighbors. And Granbury is, at this time, was a retirement community. And we had a really difficult time because a lot of those people were saying, I grew my kids, they're gone. Well, yeah, but who's gonna be taking care of you when, Junior is living up in New York City and you're down here in Granbury? It's gonna be the people that you're having come up out of your school now. It is important. And so it was mostly just trying to bring it home to them of why they wanted this. And we started off with just a very small program and then just grew it. I mean, we had a rudimentary, for example, auto tech. And then with the bond, we were able to computerize it. And so then we told the community, you need an oil change? Bring the oil and we'll let our kids change it. And that made a huge difference. For our welding, got a small welding project? Bring it up here, our kids will do it for you. No charge, just whatever materials we need. You take care of the materials and we'll do it. And then all of a sudden, the community saw, wow, this is worthwhile. This is worthwhile having. Our culinary department is open every Thursday for lunch. You actually have to make a reservation. It's bringing them into the school and letting them know how important it is. Good question.
All right, we have another question. So you talked about being the one female in your class. There are so many different aspects of people working, as we saw in the video. They come in with a college degree, without a college degree. They could be a female or hit another minority group. How did you see, or have you seen examples of manufacturing, especially in the areas that you're talking about, where the culture was built inclusive, so that all people, no matter what your educational background was or socioeconomic background was, that became an environment where people were all accepted?
As far as where I worked, yes, I did not see that. It was interesting. Now, this was back, I started in engineering back in 1981. Okay, things are very different now. I mean, we're talking 40 years later. Okay. When I first got in there was this one gentleman who just decided it just drove him nuts that I was there. And so he made sure he had his Playboy calendar up. He made sure to bring me a rose every day from his garden. And he made sure that if he was going to do an off-color joke, it was loud enough that I heard it. And pretty much the way I handled it is I just ignored it. Because what he wanted to do was bait. I was comfortable in myself. He obviously wasn't. And that's just the way I had to look at it. I had one gentleman who, when I was lead on the F-16, and he was assigned to my program, he stayed for about a week, and then he finally came to me and he said, "I'm really sorry, I just cannot work for a woman." And I said, "That's just fine. I hope you find another job." I mean, you just have to be careful. You just have to be comfortable with yourself. And if you are doing a good job, you're going to be fine. And you just can't let them get to you. You just can't. Nowadays, the gentleman with the Playboy calendar, he isn't going to be doing that anymore. You're not going to see that. It's going to be something more subtle. But at the same time, you just say, I am sorry you're so uncomfortable with who you are. I feel great about me.
Thank you, Barbara, for your message today. It really highlights that manufacturing is a career for everyone, like we're really talking about today. So in light of that, we're going to show a premiere video. Bet you didn't know this was an event where you're going to be the first to see a video about women in manufacturing.
Women can do anything. Don't let the manufacturing portion of it scare you off. I'm in this field. We have other women in this field. You can do project management. You can be a welder. You can be in shipping and receiving. You can be in maintenance. There are lots of layers to this manufacturing business, and there is a place for women in every single one of those roles.
I always thought you had to have certifications or going to school or something like that. If you have the willingness and the drive and the interest, they are completely willing to train you.
I've always loved what I do. I didn't think I would when I started working here 17 years ago. I don't know what it is, but I love working with machinery. I actually like when they break down and then we have to fix them. It makes me feel good that I can fix something.
I mean, I knew nothing, so it was kind of something I just jumped into. And once I started it, I found that I really, really liked it. It really jived with me, and I loved learning about it. You can never really learn everything in this field. You're always learning something, and that's something that intrigues me.
Learning is key, especially in manufacturing, because there's so much in the process. One of the things I've learned is even if you've been in it for 4 years, you still learn something every day.
We have a finesse that men don't have. So trying something new that we haven't done before and finding out that we're really good at it, we've just never thought about it because it's a man's world. I don't know, it's exciting to me. The whole process, building stuff from scratch, stuff's pretty cool. I really like working here.
You gotta love what you're doing. You gotta love working with people because you're gonna work with all different types of people, different cultures. I think that's what makes you successful, is loving what you do.
It's exciting because there's going to be a new challenge every day. Is it running smoothly? Are we meeting those delivery dates? I know that when I come to work today, it's not going to be boring. It's going to be something fun.
I would encourage anyone that wants to do it, just be willing to learn. You just gotta work hard and do what's asked of you every day.
I think there is a spot for any woman that wants to work in manufacturing, just because I think we're just more organized and we multitask. And manufacturing, you gotta multitask.
You know, if you want to grow in a field, you want to be able to support your family, it is a great field for a woman.
So this video and our first video are both on the BCMA YouTube page. Just go to BCMA Texas and look for our logo on YouTube, and you can watch both of those and share with them your employees. It was a real honor to be a part of those projects and get to hear the personal stories that each of those women shared about their career in manufacturing and the positive aspects that it brought to their lives. So I'm very thankful to have been a part of that. At this time, I'd like to invite Jeff Brimland. He is the director for BCMA and the plant manager at US Gypsum in Sweetwater. Come on up, Jeff.
Barbara, I enjoyed your stories, and I'm back there quickly taking notes down because there's a few things I want to mention to the group or make a connection about. Again, my name is Jeff Brimland. I'm a welder's son, and I identify with that more so than really anything else in my life, aside from being a parent and a husband. And so I really like this manufacturing thing that we've got going, and there's great careers. And so that's who I am. I thought you were going to make a comment about dirt bikes, so I'm prepared yesterday.
In my script that I didn't read, Jeff really likes dirt bikes. You can talk to him about that during the networking portion of this event that starts at 3:05 p.m.
Which leads me to my lead off job. I make motorcycles in my garage. One is for my wife, one is for my daughter, one is for my son, and the rest are mine. One of them's going to have rockets on it. Okay, so making connections. What is all this about? So I love your story about the F-22. The propulsion and aerodynamics and structural group. Are the wings going to be thin? Are they going to be thick? Swept forward, swept back. What's the fuselage going to look like? Is it going to be very thin and long? Is it going to be? What's this plane going to look like? And you talked about the competing demands and competing goals of each group. You know, the structural group wants it to look like an I-beam, and they want it to weigh a ton, because they don't want their part to fail, right? And so as I relate that back to who we are as a group, the people in this room, people outside of this room, the foundations, you know, the commissions, legislators, educators, all the people, parents, all these different groups that are trying to work together to provide hope to these students, to provide direction to these students, kind of like the East Kentucky University. I love that. It's a great way to turn young men and women into what they're going to be and do. And when I look at what we're trying to pull off as a team, and the competing demands, and the competing goals, it makes me thankful that BCMA exists. That's what we're about. If we do this right, we will be the glue that pulls this whole thing together, to take our differences in opinion, our differences in style, and turns it to what the students need. And it makes me really happy to think about that's what we are becoming. Because we can't forget it's about the students. It's about a job for everyone. You know, when we do effective leadership training at USG, I have a saying that I use all the time. And I told Ashley and Brendan they would recognize this quickly. If you don't love people, you're in the wrong business. And so my supervisors, so there's 60 people, hourly supervisors, foremen, general foremen, managers, engineers, and so on that are helping run this facility. And I tell them, if you don't love people, you're in the wrong job. And what's neat is when I look around this room, I see a lot of people, that love students, that want to pull this off. So it's really exciting to me and the rest of the BCMA that we're starting to make strides. Like we're no longer a fledgling organization. We're no longer crawling. We're starting to actually walk and run. And having you two here today to help share your stories, a word that when you're speaking, a word that ties the whole thing together for me is the word grit. Barbara, you've got grit. I wish my wife and daughter and my son had been here to hear you speak. You know, and then I wrote my last comment that I wrote on the bottom of the sheet is taking all challenges in stride. You know, it was neat that you decided to stop a career with one company to focus on family. But it didn't slow you down. It just opened the next chapter of your life. And so I believe together with all these groups working together, if we will take all challenges in stride, using the grid displayed by Barbara, we can pull this off. So those are my comments. I appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. And yes, I'll tell you about their advice in a little bit.
We're going to transition over to our panel. So if my panelists wouldn't mind coming up to the front here, we'll kick that off in a minute. We'll talk a little bit about who they are. We have Jeannie McPherson with us from CPA at Level Measurements in Sweetwater. We have Joe Tyner with Texas Healthcare Linen. He is a chief engineer. We also have Cynthia Seward. She is the HR director at Abimar Foods here in Abilene. And then we have a fun little thing. We have a couple, Bo and Amy Morris. They are the co-owners of Kim Station here in Abilene. So I'm gonna stop talking so much. I'm just gonna answer or ask some questions. They're gonna answer. So we'll kick that off. Okay, we're gonna start with Bo and Amy, but I would like everybody to answer the question. Sorry if this is a little feedback here. So the first question, I just want you to talk about your current role and briefly about the organization that you work in. And we all know that Amy is correct.
Okay, so we are married. We've been in Kim Station. We started about 2 years ago. Formerly, I was in a family business. My family, we were manufacturing pressure vessels, a lot of welding, fabrication, rolling. Grew up in it, so I've experienced to be able to enjoy that. But after growing up in it and then graduation 20 years after that, decided it was time for change. Amy, similar, growing up, family business.
Sure, I was around insurance and financial planning. My father was at the time called an insurance agent with Western Mutual. And so I'm a third generation Texas Aggie. And so we, after graduation, my degree is in business management, and I went to work with him. So after about 20 years, I was just ready for a change. He was slowing down, getting ready to retire. So we investigated this opportunity. Bo's cousin has a Kim Station in Mobile, Alabama. So there's multiple Kim Stations across the country, and this was an open territory. And so we researched it and decided it was going to be a great fit. Lots of opportunity. Like Bo said, his background was in natural gas process equipment. So as you know, that can be up and down, and it's always up and down. So this was going to be much more stable, and we can work with 20 to 25 different industries. So there's plenty of opportunity, and so we're happy to be doing what we're doing. I absolutely love what I do. It was just taking a risk of jumping into something and not knowing where it's going to lead you, but we're very happy and love Abilene. We come from the Fort Worth, Weatherford area, so not too far away, but absolutely love it here.
Great. Thanks. Who's next? I'll call out names if I need to.
My name is Joe Tyler. I'm Chief Engineer for Texas Healthcare. My role, primarily keywords reliability. So we have a high-tech automated process, and everything in that process has to be reliable. So that's kind of my job. All the equipment. So not only that, the maintenance team is there to keep the equipment running. They have to be reliable as well. So, Texas Healthcare went in, we are a hospital in this area. That's a gift of the area. So all the hospital beds that you can visit the hospital for any bad reasons, but the linen that's on the bed that comes from us, and most hospitals these days, they don't want the linen. So, I've been doing this for a long time now, and really happy to be in this industry.
Okay, I'm Jean McPherson, and like she said, I'm a CPA, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Ludlam Measurements. And Ludlam Measurements has been around almost 60 years, so it's been a long time, old company compared to these days. We manufacture radiation detection equipment, and we sell it all over the world. We have 6 different divisions here in the United States. We have 3 in the UK and 1 in Germany that we bought during COVID. It's really hard to buy a company when you can't go there. So we navigated through that, and 2 weeks ago we were able to go to Germany, so we finally got to put some feet on the ground there. So.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cynthia Seward. I'm the HR Director for Aggiemark Foods. I am very new to Abilene. I moved here August 2nd, to be exact. So everybody has been wonderful and very welcoming. I love it so far. But Aggiemark Foods has been part of the Abilene community for 30 years. Recently, 10 to 12 years as Aggiemark Foods. As most of you have probably smelled our cookies and crackers as you're driving through Abilene, we make cookies and crackers. We have 2 facilities with about 465 employees, and we need probably another 130 more. But we are part of what many people do not know is we're part of a bigger group called Grupo Nutresa, who is a Colombian organization, and they're the equivalent of like Coca-Cola in Colombia. So we are very proud to be here, be a part of the Abilene community, and we love our community, and it's a great place to be, and we're happy that we're here.
Great. So as you can see, we have some positions that are represented up here that may not be front of mind when you think about manufacturing. A lot of times we think about production. We don't think about finance or HR, being the owner, the engineer. So it's really great that they all participated. Thank you so much. We'll dig in a little deeper, but I just wanted to highlight that we were very intentional on who we selected to be on this panel. So question 2 is, what attracted you to start a career in manufacturing, and what keeps you wanting to continue your career in manufacturing?
Sorry, I should have explained earlier. A lot of you probably don't know what Chem Station is. We custom blend and manufacture industrial grade bulk cleaning chemicals. So if there's anything that needs to be cleaned, whether it be floor soap or a concrete remover, for food plants, all the sanitizing chemicals that go onto the equipment, all sorts of things. So like I said, about 20 different industries, but we make it all here, and then we deliver it in totes in the back of our delivery vehicle into refillable containers. So the idea is to keep drums out of the landfill and be more sustainable, and keeps employees safer, not having to handle 500-pound, 55-gallon drums all over the place and then not know what to do with them when they're empty. So that's what we enjoy doing, and helping out various companies here locally. We go to Midland, Odessa, We can go all the way to Weatherford, San Angelo, up to Lubbock, so it's kind of our area. Repeat the question, please.
The question is, what attracted you to start a career in manufacturing? And then what keeps you continuing that career?
Okay, the attraction was to be doing something different every day, like a lot of you have talked about. We are constantly learning, and just the opportunity to work with so many different industries. It's not just day in, day out the same industry. So I love helping people, and so I know we could go into a company and help solve some of their problems that they're having, and be an asset to them and just try to build a relationship with them.
Yeah, I would agree. A lot of that is the problem solving, being able to go in, what are you trying to do, what are you trying to accomplish, how can we help, how can we maybe make that more efficient, how can we maybe save $1 in doing it, may or may not happen, but if nothing else, be a resource of, hey, a relationship, call us, how can we help? Being able to do something different every day, every week, you never quite know what call you may get or what opportunity you may walk into. Always different, keep it fun.
We're going to share this one, and I'll go next. I was raised on a farm in West Texas, and so growing up, when I went off to college, my dad kind of met me at the door, and he had a hoe in his hand, which we were very familiar with. And he said, okay, honey, there's always a job for you here on the farm. Therefore, I went to school, I worked summers there. I didn't go back to the farm to work. I love the farm, but I swore I would never marry a farmer. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it's a hard life. And so anyway, when I graduated from college with an accounting degree, I really wanted to go to the big city and work in a skyscraper. That was just, I had made it if I had done that. So I went to Houston, I married my husband, I went to Houston, and was offered a job. One of my first jobs was Southdown, and it was a concrete and cement manufacturing company. And it was a big company, and a Fortune 100 company at the time. So it was a great place. I was on the 25th floor with suits and ties, very prestigious. And I thought, I've made it. And it was great. I learned a lot, met a lot of brilliant people. Fast forward 2.5 years later, 2 babies in 2 years, and my life changed. So therefore, that hour-and-a-half commute to work every day downtown and home just wasn't cutting it. And so, because I had a manufacturing background, although it was in corporate accounting and tax, I was offered a job closer to home. And for Varco Schaefer, a big oil and gas company, I was a cost accountant, in which I never thought I would want to do. But it was so interesting. I traded in my suits for steel-toe boots and hard hats and worked in manufacturing. And really, our plant was huge. It was probably about a mile long. It was probably 5 stories high. And the jobs that I costed were probably, at that time, 20 years ago, $20 million each. And so it was really interesting. And I kind of fell in love with manufacturing. Then we wanted to move to a smaller town, raise our girls in a smaller town, so we moved to Sweetwater. And so the prior jobs, I worked a few different jobs. I was in finance, and I was director of the city in Sweetwater. And a job came up at Ludlam's, and it was manufacturing, and that's what I really liked. And so 13 years ago, I moved there, and it's been really good. And those other jobs have really set me up to know all the different aspects of manufacturing. So it's been really good since. So I would have to agree with what has kept me there is that it's not the same every day. Challenge upon challenge, and everybody here knows that everything in manufacturing is not easy, but it's worthwhile and it gives purpose. So.
My first job in manufacturing was for an automotive company, and I was hired because I was bilingual. It was my first HR job. I had very, very little experience, but because I was bilingual, I got the job. So I consider that a blessing because it was really what changed my life, what changed my path career-wise, and what I really wanted to do. Remember walking in and seeing it was an automotive government company, and they made tiny chains and views for cars, and I remember seeing the machines and just being so fascinated at everything, how everything works, what it took to make it work. But what really drew me to it is the heart of the people working on the floor. And they would come to me with a problem with insurance or a problem with their paycheck, and the satisfaction that I would get to know that I made their life a little bit easier just for that one moment after they worked an 8 or 10 or 12-hour shift. It just had an impact for me. And I knew that I had found my career, and that's where I was going to spend the rest of my career. And I've dabbled a couple of times and gotten out of the manufacturing a couple of years here and there, and I always go back to manufacturing because that's where my heart is, and I plan on spending the rest of my career because the passion and, manufacturing is the heart of the USA. It's what we build this country on, so we need to continue to make it successful and to make sure that the generations to come know how important it is to our country. So.
My first job in manufacturing actually came in when I was in high school, and I worked for Brandon Incorporated in Cisco through the school work program. And very fortunate to have a office today because I didn't have that back then, so I really feel lucky because I could be in the oil field, I could be a truck driver, do something that my parents could do. But I kind of fell into that job, and that was my first job in high school. I got to look at all the processes that went involved in injection molding. And when I left that company out of high school, I ended up at a monument company in Brownwood, Texas, making tombstones and all things. I was able to, it's a small mom and pop place, took everything I learned from RAM and implemented processes in a monument company, so I thought that was pretty neat. So in the interim, for about a month, here's why I go back to manufacturing. I worked for a construction company. I was there for about a month. I only worked there for 2 weeks because apparently if it rains and you can't work, they don't want to pay you. Manufacturing, you're inside of the building and you have a stable environment, you have a stable job. So that was my first job. Right out of Cisco, Texas, right out of high school. I went to a monument company. Then I went on to Myers Industries in Brownwood with highway striping, the last beads on highway striping, and I was there for 11 years. Pretty much grew up in that industry, grew up as a professional development as a person. I owe everything to manufacturing because I had health insurance, I got to support my family, make a good living. Don't have a college education. I might feel about as high as I can without a college degree. But it's not good to see, glamorous, but I made a good living for my family. Very happy doing it. Just thanking you guys also is kind of a common thread. There's something new every day, something different, a different challenge. And there are people that exist that don't want something different every day. They have something to be saying over and over and over. I'm just not one of those guys. And I would bet everybody in this room is probably the same way. So, that was my first
Sounds like a lot of stability, passion, problem solving, family oriented, just a lot of common themes that we're seeing here. Who wouldn't want to be working in that type of environment or tell their students about that type of environment moving forward? So, final question for me. What is something that you find exciting, interesting, or surprising that you learned while working in manufacturing?
I would say for me, it's working in two things, working in so many different industries and being able to go in and talk to them about and see their facilities and what their problems are, just anything that I can try to help with and ask questions and learn more about different industries. that's been very interesting to me. And then we wear so many hats from the owner's perspective. It's not as glamorous. We're so new. I mean, there's companies that have been around decades, but because we're so new, I mean, we wear so many different hats. I never knew I was going to learn how to drive a forklift and do okay at it whenever he's not available. So we do that. I mean, we're taking care of everything right now, but there's so much opportunity here to grow and to expand and to hire new employees, and so we're just looking forward to that.
Mark, since we started, a lot of what, being able to see real time, it's like how it works, the real version kind of thing. You get to places you may not have been able to be in before, things you wouldn't have seen before. It never occurred to me that every egg in the carton at the grocery store has been washed and sanitized before it got in there. Never thought about it, but it does happen. Thankfully. So the ability to just keep learning. There's always something new, always a better way to sharpen your game and professionally improve.
I think in manufacturing in general, and I know everybody's alluded to it, but anybody, anywhere with any degree or no degree at all can find a place in manufacturing. It's there, and it's really fun to work with that many different types of people. Now, my current job, I would say, exciting or surprising, probably the international aspect has been different. The currencies, learning how to buy foreign currencies, learning how to deal with different cultures. It's different and it's tough. And when you're talking about Turkey, I thought just this morning we were trying to figure out how to ship to Cuba. That's not an easy thing, even though it's for the government. It's so many rules and regulations and so many things to learn that it's surprising that from a little girl from West Texas is having to determine how to do those things.
Will you be learning German?
I've tried. I think beer is not the only word I can spell. I'm gonna keep trying.
I think what I find most exciting is that you learn something new every day. I know everybody has mentioned that, but every time I go out to the floor, I learn something new. Whether it's how this machine works, or why it has to be tweaked a certain way, or why the machine operator, has to put the tray a certain way. It's just so fascinating to me. But what's even more fascinating is seeing people like two of the ladies in the video that came from Agumar Foods, their dedication to growing. Myra, who was on the video, she's been with the company for 17 years, and she started at entry-level production, and now she runs the whole facility. There's not a thing, a knife in that plant or a machine in that plant that she can't fix or that she can't work with. And she has such a passion for people, and just to see that, and you see it over and over again. No matter what manufacturing company you go, you always have those people who have started from the very beginning and moved their way up into positions and have just grown with the company. And so you can see the passion in them. She was actually, I think, a little calm in her video. She's very, very passionate about everything she does, and tried to talk to her about something yesterday. I can't talk to you right now, I'm on my mind, the cookies are falling off. So it was just good. It's like, okay, just call me when you're done. But it's fantastic to see that, and to be a part of that, and just to see their, the career growth that everybody does through in manufacturing. So.
But everything's exciting to me, as you can tell. I love everything that I find interesting is a lot of the statistics that you find in manufacturing. Every dollar put into manufacturing, $2.79. I thought that was very interesting. It is very true. It's the common thread though, there's something new every day, and every stop I've been along the way to learn from the industry that was in making alignments. You can imagine what all that entails. It's kind of cool. But that's where really put extra focus on pride in the work, because when somebody gets a tombstone, remind them that's the last thing they'll ever get on earth. So we're going to put a little bit extra pride into making it the best, the very best that you can make it. So I did that for about almost 5 years. And a lot of really unique experiences. Standing in lots of country cemeteries, and if you're a history guy, that's a really good place to get into a cemetery where lots of historical monuments, facts inside of one company atmosphere. You're always isolated by yourself. Interesting things that happen. But there's always something different every stop. I think that's what keeps it going. The edge right there. You're always learning something new. So, I have 2 sons that actually graduated from GSTC. One's about to graduate. They both USG now. And they have college or student debt or anything like that. Because they got exposed to the manufacturing from me, it's
Jeff, you owe him money. Does anybody have any questions for our panelists? Caesar, are there any online? Anybody out in the audience have a question for any of our panelists?
I got a question. So I think it'd be interesting if one or two of you would just kind of talk about what are some of the current challenges that you're dealing with in the business environment, and what are some of the things that that would help the business thrive a little bit more, help it grow. What are the things from the public sector that might help from a policy and regulation point of view? What are those challenges you're trying to overcome right now?
I was glad to hear Granbury going in and helping, starting a lot of the stuff that when I was in high school, that had been dropped out. There was no woodworking shop, none of that. That had all been left out. So I'm glad to hear it's coming back in. That's very important. That gives, I was able to get an experience or exposure to manufacturing due to my parents and what we did. But there are so many others that, how do you know if you haven't been exposed to it? I think that's critical. A lot of that things we're trying to do is trying to hire the right folks who have a good sales mindset. That's our hardest thing right now. Someone who, they want to be paid a lot, which is fine. I'm not going to pay them, go earn it. It's commission. Get it? That is our, yeah. Yeah, there's, and you don't have to have a college degree. There's plenty of folks in our industry who just the right personality, the right curiosity, they can do very well. So it's not necessarily education driven at all. Policy, for us, commodity pricing and import, things that were imported and containers have gone from $5,000 a container to $20,000 a container. So our raw material inputs have gone, we've got some that have gone up like 300% in the past year. So that we've offshored so much manufacturing that's biting us, I think, as a country.
I would just say labor. You all know it. That's the biggest thing in machinists. We need machinists desperately. So we would love to get great people, and right now we take anybody. So no, it is, and I would say that price of inflation, it's getting parts, just being able to find parts, rather than source parts from the German people and everywhere else, and rather than redesign boards. just because we might can get this part, and it's just wasting money.
I'll have to concur with everything. Obviously, at Avamar Foods, we have 130 openings right now, and we are working really, really hard to hire every person that we can get so that we can meet our sales order. And we also have the same, the increase in cost of raw materials that obviously has an impact on our business and consequently has an impact on our customers. So, from an HR perspective, I'd say our biggest challenge is definitely the attraction and retention of employees. I'm sure I'm speaking what everybody else is thinking as well, but so I'm really glad for things like Manufacturing Day, because that is our future. Those children coming through our school, our companies, that's our future. So, and for the programs that you mentioned, and really, I think Abilene, a lot of the Abilene schools do have a lot of great programs. My son is going to that. He's learning how to do quite a bunch of different things. That's what we need to continue to do for our children and provide them those opportunities that we have in manufacturing.
Wish I could come up with something original, but pretty much everything everybody just said is that's labor. It's the same thing. How do you attract the right people and retain them on top of that? Something not everybody is born with is work ethic. So for young schoolers, young high school age people, getting out into the real world, my message would be to them: if you have a work ethic, you really can. You really can make anything you want in life.
Which leads into just another great question that Joe kicked off. What would you say to an individual that's graduating high school, college, and looking at a career in manufacturing to say, come and work for me? HR director has something prepared.
I would say, come and try us. I mean, we have tried, we put in a flexible work program for, it's called a Life Your Way program. So if we have a high school student who wants to do something and wants to just try it out, we offer part-time, come and, work 4 hours after school, 2 or 3 days a week. You'd be surprised at how much you could end up loving it, what you could find a career out of there. And, what we try to emphasize as part of our orientation is, yes, you may start as, packing cookies, but you can, you have the opportunity to become whoever you want in our organization because the opportunities are there for growth.
Love that, Life Your Way.
So it's probably set for all of us. So, come see us.
There's so many needs, and there's just because you fit in one position at one company, other companies where you can put in the best people we can have, or the best. If you're trying something out, you're better off if you know and how to do it. The skills you can grow and push on.
I would say, if they're in high school and there are opportunities for skills programs like welding or what have you, then to get involved in those. And a lot of times when most of us probably when we were young in high school really maybe didn't know exactly what we wanted to do, but it just takes investigating. So if you're drawn to something, well, go investigate that. And if you can work part-time there at a certain facility or do an internship, and there's no harm in trying something. And then if you don't like it and it doesn't work out, then there are obviously multiple jobs everywhere right now. So try something different. But I think it's so important to tell young people to not feel like they would get stuck in a job. And I think it's important to enjoy what you do and love what you do. And it's so much more fulfilling in life. So if you try something and don't like it, try something else. I'm sure there's multiple opportunities.
Well, I would say that high school, absolutely investigate, be part of this thing, take all the tours that you can in this area. go visit the factories, it's likely that they would, a percentage of people would discover something they really like, from what we have to offer. Touching on what Joe said earlier, we have so many different backgrounds, different corporations, businesses, working together to pull this off. You don't like something that you're doing, you always have another avenue that you can turn into. So if you're a guidance counselor, I think pushing in this direction, at least let me take a look at what we've got. I think really the bottom line is like, at least when I was younger, there's always a misconception about almost like they're a coal miner or something like that. You know, stuck to the or something crazy. And it's just not the truth. There's so much more that manufacturing can offer. And the average manufacturing worker gets paid more than any other field. Well, that's especially without college.
Stability is all factor in my working, you know, there's so many different positions and jobs and, you know, like for sales, I mean, pretty much any sales job, you could be in manufacturing. If you want to work really hard, like there's probably commission assigned to that, and the sky's the limit, so, you don't necessarily have to have a degree to make it work for that. Lots of opportunity.
Marissa, we have a question back here.
I think sometimes there's a misconception about the safety of the jobs we have. Could a couple of you comment on the importance of safety and how you make sure your workplace is safe?
So, for what we're doing, safety is paramount. I mean, it doesn't take much, or you get a splash and you can get injured, die, or otherwise. So we have to be very safe in what we're doing. Part of what we're also offering is safety to our customers as well, to help reduce them to either the physical, physically moving stuff, less handling. And we also do training as well, things, this is how we suggest you handle this. And, so for us, safety is very important.
Yeah, just the proper training, depending on what your position is and what kind of business you have. But we've taken lots and lots of training to get to where we are now, and anybody we hire, we definitely make sure that they're up on training, and we continue that, cycle.
Safety training is an, if you're going to work in manufacturing, we're going to train you to be safe. You're going to get lockout, tag out training, you're going to get confined space training. That is a misconception. I really believe that people go into manufacturing, miners are something crazy. They don't understand. But whatever field you get into, you're going to be trained. You're going to get all the tools at your fingertips, and nobody is going to spare the expense when it comes to keeping their workforce safe. So I think that's a good question to address. I think people have that misconception, and I think we need to bring that to light. We get well trained.
And in addition to the training, I would just add equipment. We have big machinery, but we have equipment that is safeguards that we use, and I mean, we require it. If somebody takes it off, I mean, it's not much you can do about it if you don't help, but we provide good equipment that keeps people safe. And in our business, people are worried about radiation. We don't really have radiation, we detect radiation. We have some pieces, but they're very well wiped out. And so, you know, most of the time, yeah, it's just misconceptions that we're all here to keep our workers safe. Without them, we wouldn't be here.
I'm just gonna add that repetitive training, obviously, having a healthy safety program that provides you with the required trainings every year. When you get a new piece of equipment, evaluating that equipment, what training needs to be what can take place for that equipment, the safety risk, job risk analysis for every position. It's very, very important and key to the success. After all, we have to take care of our number one asset, our people, so.
I have a question from Barbara.
It's very obvious in all of manufacturing that the success of the worker comes from their merit. And I was wondering if each one of you could give us an example of an employee that just really exceeded expectations because of their own effort.
Myra, who, she definitely, she came in and, I've only known her for a few months, but, she started on the production line and she has just really just excelled. She has taken a lot of ownership, you know, for every employee, every piece of equipment, and I mean, she's our best example, and I can probably name 5 more just like her, maybe even more, to be quite honest with you. I don't know them all yet, but I will eventually. Lee Murphy, who was in the video as well, she's only been with the organization for about 4 years, but you know, she started in the same place. Just this week, we promoted somebody from working as a machine operator to a supervisor, and she was ecstatic, you know. So the number I can probably talk for quite a long time, and that's just adding more. I can go back through my career, people who I've just seen just really excel and work hard at becoming who they want to become.
And I completely agree. Manufacturing, as we've said, you can start from the bottom and work your way up. We have one in our machine shop, we have 3 brothers, and they've all gone through the machine shop. I think one of them, the oldest, may have had some training before, but he worked all the way up until he was working on efficiencies. His 2 brothers, no, just came right out of high school, and they worked up to being more advanced machinists and very valuable in computer programming skills. I have one young girl who I started when I started 13 years ago, and she was just out of, she went to college a little bit, she started a family, and so it kind of, derailed her. But she worked as she worked in the back end assembly. She came up to the front end scanning. I taught her accounts payable. She did accounts payable. Then she did a cost accounting, and now she works on efficiencies throughout our plant. So it's, she's done really well. She's gotten herself a degree in that time as well. So it can happen, and it does, like you said, lots of things.
We don't have any employees yet,
We did, but they didn't work hard enough, so. That day is coming though. We have faith that it'll happen, and I just can't wait to give somebody a bonus because of how hard they've worked, and prove to us that they're willing to take a lead or whatever the position is and go and run for it, so.
So does that mean Bo hasn't earned a bonus?
It's different, but yeah.
The other young man, young Morris, he's been there the entire time in Texas up there, and he sees this silver on top of that. A lot of you guys probably remember around 2013, right when I moved out there, oil field was kind of at its peak, and we're kind of the same thing with that now. We just didn't find people coming and work for us. I couldn't get anybody all day long from the plant. They're all out in the middle of Odessa and making big bucks mowing grass. But I had a couple of minutes texts. One was on vacation, shorthanded. I'm out on the floor, and when I took the vacation, like I said, couldn't get his money back, and so I had to let it go. My other maintenance tech decided to blow a .2 on the breathalyzer at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, so I had to fire him. So it was just me, okay? So I had this young man that had been asking questions about maintenance, and I got to a point where I'm like, running this whole operation by myself. And I actually went to the supervisor. So flash forward 8 years, this guy's my top maintenance mechanic. He's taken all the initiative to better himself. I've sent him to school for our equipment in Louisiana. I'm really proud of him. I know I'm telling you that, but I really am. To me, it's a good story, and really a good manufacturing story, if I'm being honest. It's, he did it. I've nudged him in the right direction at times. He's a really good story. So.
We have another audience question over here.
Good afternoon. Doug Dowler from the Development Corporation in Snyder, Texas. As a development organization, our primary job is obviously recruitment of new industry and job creation. But along with that job also comes business retention. So the big question is, from our perspective, how can communities and economic development organizations assist you in either, recruiting, workforce creation, what are your needs and how can we help?
For us being new, networking events like this, where we're able to meet people, is very beneficial. Folks we may not have been able to meet otherwise, or especially with last year COVID, a lot of doors shut, you could not go knock on doors. So the being able to interact for us, I would say, is very important.
I would say for Sweetwater, any other small towns, housing. Housing is huge. We try to compete with bigger cities and, that our cost of living is lower. It's not always, because we have older houses, they need to be renovated. There's nowhere we have young chemists, engineers, physicists coming in. They have nowhere to live. And we are struggling to help them find a place to live that's not a fortune and a dump, quite frankly. So, we really struggle with that. So our economic development board is working on getting housing going. So that really is key. Education is key. Keeping your schools, you said keeping your schools up, because we're trying to recruit people from up north. And our last ones have moved to Abilene. We would still love them to have them in Sweetwater. We're glad to have them, period. But we have other facilities in other places. We've got one right now, he's living in Sweetwater for a year, trying to decide to stay here, or if he could go to our facility in Tennessee. I don't know if we're gonna keep him, but anyway, people with young kids, they're looking at the education system as well. That's important.
I would say other thing that are important is social services, like transportation to work. Many of the demographics coming to work don't have a car, are not able to get to work. So making sure that the city has services or shuttles that will help them to get to work, because not everybody can afford an Uber or I don't even know if there's Uber everywhere, but those types of things are difficult to afford. Help with childcare. Many of our the demographics, at least coming in, have struggled to find childcare, which is why we've offered that Life Your Way program to try to help them through some of that. The education in the schools, I think that's big. That's huge. Manufacturing days and starting to connect with kids as early as junior high is really key as well. Passing down to Joe.
I think what you just said about child care would be beneficial to workers and workers to each other. When school's in session, it's not so much of a problem, because when there's Columbus Day or something like that, school down, it's this work, it's not a big thing. So helping people and assisting them with those issues out there, I think really would be beneficial.
We have another one right here. Hi, I'm Christina. I'm from Haskell. I'm here on behalf of Steel Fire Apparatus, building fire trucks here in the big country. Not really sure how to word this, but the climate of workers now, there's a lot of people that don't go back to work or couldn't work for a long time. What are some things that employers maybe could do for their employees? Because like you said, you have 130 openings, so that means there may be some employees doing 2 or 3 jobs. And so do you have any programs or things that you do for your employees that are showing up to show appreciation? Because that is another thing too, is when your employees go out and they say, this is an awesome place to work. It's like a family, these are the things they do for us. So I was just wondering what maybe y'all have that other organizations or companies could take back to their company.
Well, I mean, we don't have anything to share about their 2 employees out there.
try to compete with pay, you know. I don't know that we've done anything innovative that has worked, but we're trying lots of things on the job training. I mean, we're trying everything that we can think of.
We do a lot for our team members. We offer really good benefits for our team members, vacation time. We offer flexible schedules. We're just trying to be as creative as everybody else is on how we can keep them and retain them and provide good environments. One of the things that we're starting this week actually is called the Happy Moment. And it might be silly, but it's a happy moment, so everybody's going home with ice cream tomorrow. And it's the little things that make them remember, oh, my company did that for me. So we're just starting to do whatever we can to show them how much we appreciate them. We've increased pay, increased, the job development and opportunities for advancement, and just continuing to be flexible with our team members. So I don't know if that helped, but.
Sorry, I didn't put you on the spot. But then it's not just manufacturing, you see so many companies losing employees and then they're down to 2 employees and then those employees quit and businesses are shutting down. So I was just trying to think outside of the box, so it's,
I was gonna say, for manufacturing companies, definitely doing safety bonuses, I've heard are a nice thing, so whether you do it monthly or quarterly, if you go so long without having an injury or any kind of mishap, safety-wise, there's a bonus for everybody, and especially if it's a team effort. And then just showing them appreciation, so if somebody did something outstanding or they went out of their way to help, then, there'll be a gift card for a meal out with their family, something, things like that will be doing.
I think, again, I can't come up with any original, but the same thing is employee appreciation, and doing the best, being as creative as we can. Everybody has to do that. I'd say you give them more vacation time, but we might have enough to let them take off their vacation, so. I don't know if that helps at all.
Gerald and Alex is knowing how to go get that degree, that master's degree. That was available to you. You guys have so many higher education facilities in the TSTC that, if someone's wanting to do more, that's going to be key. I mean, if you think about it, that MBA that they allowed me to get, that was $30,000 bonus. So if you're able to do that, I mean, now not only that, but they would want to stay with you, look what you did. In fact, for mine, it was actually mandatory. I had to stay 1 year for every year I went to school. So, I mean, is there something that they want from an education standpoint that you can get to them to make them want to stay?
There are a lot of programs that there's a lot of programs that we want to implement and that we need to implement, for Abby-Mar specifically, we want to implement ESL programs, leadership training we're starting a lot of that right now, so we are really just looking for, what we can do to take care of our employee as an individual as well, so that's why we offer the flexible schedule. But we're researching and we're just constantly asking, what else can we do more to make your life better, not just while you're here at work, but your life as a whole. Because if not everybody's gonna be able to pay everybody $17, $18 an hour. I mean, that's the reality. But if you can show them that you care for them as a whole, you have more likelihood of them staying. And that is what our strategy is going to be.
Any other questions from our audience?
We have one more.
One more.
And this is directed at you, Marissa. No, I'm joking. In terms of, you talked about the safety, getting high school students, Cynthia, you talked about high school students coming in and working 4 days a week. Internships is one of those things that we keep on hearing about. Is it possible in your areas that you, and maybe it's even for the greater population, is there an age restriction on youth coming to work in your industries due to OSHA regulations or other regulations that are out there?
They have to be 18 years old, so, would love, that's the OSHA regulations, so unfortunately, we can have high school students, but they have to be 18 in order to work for us, and I believe that's the same for all of you.
It depends on our job. We can have them younger do certain things, but they're restricted for other things. But, we can, and we do. And so we do try to take advantage of that, especially if they think they'll come back and move on and train them. So we can, but we aren't restricted. And I know that they talked about maybe the legislature changing the legislature's rules, so I don't know where they're at on that, but it is still pretty restricted.
But you see the opportunities beyond just them being able to do internships. Here's my plug. Doing internships, we've got Elijah over here, that's why it's for his sake too. But students being able to come into the manufacturing business, maybe not being able to be on the floor, but maybe being able to do other jobs and seeing what's going on in your companies. Do they still have to be 18 if they are on the floor?
They don't for us.
Okay.
They don't for us either. We'll definitely explore some opportunities for this coming summer.
Had some high schools, this summer,
No.
But they do get out on the floor and they do get an observation of how the process works. And I think that really, we have somebody from high school just to see the process.
Can you take one? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, whenever I was in high school, there was, they called it vocational education, and it was like part of the day of your school, part of it you went to a job or something. I don't know if that still is. Okay. Work study, okay, it used to be.
So you can talk to Lucille Fullen, Director of CTE with Abilene ISD over here, about internships, or Elisha Seka, who is the career coach for CTE programs. Last
Can we take
question?
one more?
Yes.
Okay, one more.
I don't really have a question. I have more of a, I guess, a statement. To my knowledge, I'm the only school administrator here. Except for the folks from AISD. I hear all the business representatives saying we need employees. We need somebody dedicated, we need somebody we can depend on, we need somebody to show up to work, not blow a 2.0 on their breathalyzer test. I would really like a business card from everybody here because what I'm seeing is there is a huge need to make presentations to kids that, today I sent my entire high school, all 29 of them, to Cisco today to tour around. I know other places hosted tours today, but I'm hearing a huge demand from industry saying we need employees. I see limitations on where I can send my kids. I also see retirement in my horizon. If I can figure out a way to make that come together and help people, help industry, help the kids that aren't going to MIT to go get a bachelor's or a master's in aerospace, and I'm promising you none of mine are going to MIT. They're good kids. Some of them will actually show up and work, but they're not going to MIT. But if I could figure out a way to match those needs and that supply, then I would love to do that. So I'd like a business card from everybody that's willing to give me one before you leave.
I feel like that was a mic drop statement for the members that are here. So I want to thank all of our panelists for sharing some great insights about day-to-day in the world of manufacturing. And it's great to hear from our key players again that we may not think of as traditional roles in manufacturing. So thank you again. Let's give them a round of applause. So before we start our refreshments and networking, I'm going to invite Mark Coleman to come up here and wrap us up. He is the only person standing in the way of talking to Jeff about dirt bikes.
Well, the bad thing for me is I thought Mercy would be running a lot faster and being ahead of time, so my 25 pages of notes, I'm not going to be able to go through all of them. I'm just glad you kept us on track. And I realize now between the refreshments and everything, so I'll keep this brief, but I do want to say, wow, what a great day, and what a great event. I'm very proud of being part of the BCMA. I think the topics and discussions were great today. I think it's a great day for manufacturing, both in the big country and in the United States. Special thanks to Marshall for coming out and speaking with us. Really enjoyed the topics. Two things that I took away. I agree with you that there's something about engineers and the project. The paper has to outweigh the thing you're making before you can ship the thing you're making. And I'm an engineer, so I can make fun of them. We make boilers, and most of our boilers weigh about 300 to 400,000 pounds. And I swear we have to make more paper than the boiler weighs before we can ship the boiler. So I get that. The other thing is, at social hour, I would like to know how you order your hot dogs at the varsity. So I want your secret recipe. So that's an inside joke if anybody's been to it. I also want to thank our panelists. Appreciate you guys being willing to get here in front and talk to everybody. I think the topics were great, and there's certainly we all have the same issues, right? And so that's one of the great things about our organization and allows us to all kind of work together and getting up on who we are to get what we need. So that's great. I also want to thank the students and teachers and our support partners, because without all of them today, we're pretty boring. We need a whole lot. The tours wouldn't have happened. And that's what this is all about, right? Is developing the resources that we all need to be successful in business and have successful communities. Also, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Workforce Solutions, Region 14, and Develop Abilene. Again, without that support, we wouldn't be here today, so we really appreciate that. I think between the tours this morning, and we don't want to miss those tours, I want to give my guys a handout here. They had 75 students go through WinTech today. I know all the other organizations had a lot of people go through, but that's the kind of exposure that we need to get and let these folks understand that these opportunities are out there. So kudos to everybody on the tour side. And one of the things that we promote through BCMA is those tours go on throughout the year. So you can contact the BCMA companies that have volunteered to do that, and we'll be happy to have them out. Couple takeaways though for the students and the educators. First off, manufacturing is alive and well in the United States and in the big country. So any of that bad press that you hear that manufacturing jobs are gone and they don't exist anymore, well, they do. And we have a lot of them that are open, as we've talked about. For the students and the teachers that are advising them, that we hope you can consider a career in manufacturing. If you hadn't considered a career in manufacturing or didn't even know what they might have been, hopefully today's events will open your eyes to that and maybe spark some interest. And we would encourage you to consider going into manufacturing. The second thing is that it's important to understand, and as we heard several times here today, there are a lot of manufacturing jobs that don't require a 4-year college degree. A lot of these are just learn skill, learn some basic things, have a work ethic, show up to work, and in most of our businesses, as you've heard today, we're going to train you because we all have specific needs, but we're looking for the basic skills and a willingness to come to work every day. So you don't have to spend a ton of money to go to college. If you want to do that, that's great. But if you want to try something and not do that, there's opportunities to come right out of high school or out of the technical program and find jobs in manufacturing. And I'll say they're good jobs with an opportunity to advance and have a career. A lot of our folks, and some of the panelists mentioned it, Rentech's been around for 25 years. We have lots of people that are 20 to 25 year veterans in our company. And they've been there for that long time. So these are jobs that are lasting jobs that are candid careers. So take that away. The third thing is that I thought it was really neat listening to everybody, and I get excited about manufacturing. I've been in manufacturing my whole career. The thing that I think is really great about manufacturing is there's a satisfaction in making something. When you go to work every day, and I think about some of those other jobs, but when you're not making something, the satisfaction, you went home at the end of the day and you made something. I think there's that real satisfaction, as we heard the panelists talk about it, I think you can see that enthusiasm. So that's one of the things to take away. And I mentioned the opportunity to move up in organizations. A lot of our folks that are now line supervisors and managers, they started maybe as a laborer coming into the organization. So there are opportunities to move up. On to the manufacturers that are in the room. Thank you. If it wasn't for you guys today, this certainly would have happened. So we really appreciate all the participation from the BCMA companies. I have to say, as Jeff mentioned earlier, it's very rewarding to see where BCMA is today. Looking around the room, there's a lot of folks that were here when I first started, and we weren't really sure what we were doing or where we were going with it. But I think we've evolved, and appreciate all of the support that we've got along the way. Very, very happy and proud to be part of the organization. I think we're moving in the right direction, and obviously with the needs, so that's good. For those manufacturers that are here today that maybe are new or just joined, or thinking about joining, hopefully today's activities solidify the deal, and you guys will join up and participate. I think again, the more that we have involved, the stronger our voice will be, and the more ability we'll have to make the changes that we need to have made. One of the things that I will say for those that haven't been around BCMA very long, those of us that have been here for a couple of years now, I'm not sure how long are we? 4. Okay, so we've been around 4 years. Probably only 2 of those that we really kind of started figuring out what we're doing. But when I think when we first all got in the room, it was like, why are all these competing entities in the room? Right? We're all competing for a resource. And I think what we've all come to learn that have been with BCMA here for a while is that we're not competing for resources. We're actually working to train people and make that resource pool bigger for all of us. And I think that's the challenge. You talked about the vocational programs that used to be in school that aren't there. They're coming back. But we as manufacturers have to work with our educators and our support partners to make sure what's being taught is what we actually need. And that's one of the key takeaways. And so that's one of the very rewarding things that I've had working with the BCMA and the support partners. It is that. And the educators, they're more than happy to teach what we need to teach. We just need to be communicating with them. And that's one of the great things about BCMA is pulling all those resources together. And the common issues that we all talked about, we heard about, there are issues with internships and those types of programs where we want to bring students into the workplace, but there are legislative issues that are keeping that from happening. We're at Rentech, we've had welders come in as interns. They have to be 18 years old. There's a real opportunity to bring other students in and get them involved early on. We've got to address some of those legislative issues that are out there. So with that, I'm done. I hope everybody has enjoyed the day and today's activities. This concludes our session for the afternoon. We do have a reception right after this. So if you can stick around and enjoy some camaraderie and networking, we would really appreciate it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.